Okay, so I call this meeting to order at 3 o'clock. I'm going to read the conflict of interest statement. Does any member of the council or any member of the city staff have any known conflict of interest with any item on the agenda?
None.
Seeing none, we can pass that off. Now we move to the acceptance of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Vasquez.
Second.
And seconded by Councilor. There's only two of you, so it'll be pretty easy. Okay, so our action items are pretty simple. Just to reiterate what the resolution says, we have a 4 ex officio community member committee, and those members should come from the cultural, scientific, artistic, and educational communities within Las Cruces. And as you were probably aware, there's an application process on the city website. And so one of the things that we can talk about, if you want to, is how you want to go about recruiting those members. I don't know if you have people in mind, if you want to talk to people that you know, it's up to you how those recruitments happen. If you have anything, any ideas, have plans.
Rebecca, yeah, sure. I mean, that's a pretty broad category of a big umbrella for a lot of different folks. I am happy to perhaps appoint at least one person from the 4 ex officio members. Rebecca, can any of us here appoint members or request that members be appointed, or is it just the counselors?
It's by the application, so anybody can apply, and then once they apply, you vote them in, yes or no. So it can be anybody, and anybody from the public can just want to be part of it, as long as they fit one of those categories. So,
okay.
And that, as you said, that's a really broad swath of the community. I can't really think of anyone who probably wouldn't fit cultural, scientific, artistic, or education. So in the past, Councilor Abeyta-Stuve asked about the previous iteration of quality of life. We had members of the school board. We had people from NMSU. You were on that on that committee. So we had just people who were volunteers at the Science Museum. We had people who were artists in the community. A board member from SCORE. We had, there was a diverse group of people who came in and out who were very passionate about quality of life in Las Cruces. So it's a pretty broad spectrum. The things that have been said to me in the community is, we really they wanted to see a diversity of age. So maybe some young artists and some like people who might be from the retired community, so we can see perspectives from all sides and those kind of things. So I think if you have people in mind, just encourage them to go onto the site of the city clerk site and apply through that process.
Okay. What do you just, I guess, for best coordination and diversity of applicants, do we want to just make an informal, perhaps agreement that maybe we each recruit one person, would put us at 3, Rebecca, if you wanted to go ahead and recruit one as well.
Okay.
And I could recruit one, Councilor Abeyta-Stuve could recruit one, which takes us to 3. And then I'm not sure if you want to assign anyone else. No pressure to recruit anybody, or just so that I think it might be good that way to just divvy up that recruitment.
Would you, sorry, Councilor Vasquez, would you mind if you want me to take the extra person too, so I intentionally choose 2, or?
Sure. that would sound good to me. Yeah.
Okay.
And is there a timeline, Rebecca, in which we should have these applications in perhaps by our next meeting?
I think that would be the best, so that I can really, you could vote on it next meeting, and then we could have a much broader perspective by the next meeting. Or if you vote them in early that meeting, they might be able to join us at that meeting as well. If you put that on, if we put that on the agenda first.
Okay, and remind me when
If
our,
that's fine, I don't know. I'll ask.
what is our meeting frequency again?
That's one of the things on our list.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, easy enough to settle on that for now then.
Yeah.
That sounds okay to everybody.
So the next thing on the agenda is the selection of the chair. So I open it up for nominations.
I would love to nominate Councilor Veta Stubbe if she'd be willing to entertain being chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilor Vasquez. I'll accept your nomination.
Great.
Do we want to close nominations now? Or would you like to counter? I don't know. Your options are the two of you, so.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Veta Stubbe being our chair?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay. Do you want to take over, or do you want me to finish the meeting?
May I please have you finish this meeting, and then we'll get together afterwards and I'll get caught up to speed with any of the details.
Okay, thank you for becoming our chair. The next item is the frequency of meetings. So they can be monthly, bi-monthly, however often we think we need to meet. I think in the past they were monthly, but that doesn't necessarily have to be true if that's not what we think is necessary.
Are we able to add in meetings, say that there's emergency, a special issue that is called upon our attention? Are we able to add extra meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'd be fine with having these meetings monthly.
Okay. Do you have any objection to that, Councilor Vasquez?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. So all those in favor, yes. So so the next item is future discussion or tasks that we might want to discuss. Does anybody? I have two items, but does either one of you have items that you might want to discuss?
I would like to know what parameters we have for, I think quality of life can encompass so many items. And so is there tailored areas that we are looking at, or do we get to look at everything as a whole and then apply it to the situation that may be presented to us?
So strangely, the parameters that were put on it were cultural, scientific, artistic, and educational items related to the city. Definitely policy before it goes to council.
Mm-hmm.
The two items that I have are kind of the types of, or two types of items that would come before the PRC. One is the museum master plan before, while it's in its public comment phase.
Mm-hmm.
So that needs to come to the PRC. It definitely falls under quality of life because it is about the museums, which is cultural and scientific and artistic and educational. The other is the public art ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
The council has already approved the public art master plan, but the ordinance is part of that process. And it's been delayed. It was supposed to actually come to you during this, during the early spring, but because of some other things that needed to be worked out. It has been delayed. So now that the PRC is back in order, it will come to you first as the PRC, and then it'll go to the city council as a. So if you have any questions or concerns, we can work those out first, and then it'll go to the council. So those are the types of things that can come to the PRC. In the past, we've also discussed initiatives for, I don't know, for marketing plans about public safety and public perception for using, at that point was transit. So that might go to transportation. That's a weird topic that sometimes crosses over because it's in quality of life, the department. And it's also, of course, in transportation in people's minds because it is actually physically about transportation. So we talk about a myriad of things. So it's a pretty broad category, just like health is, and health actually can fall in here. So sometimes we have to work with the other PRCs to make sure that we're not crossing those boundaries and making sure that it's going to the proper PRC to make sure that it's going in the right path. But sometimes also, just like you said, if there's an emergency meeting or they just need to go to a PRC, sometimes if we have a meeting coming up, things have come to a PRC that it falls under to get it on an agenda so that counselors can have that conversation in a public forum before it goes to council, while it still falls under the umbrella of what that PRC discusses. And I think that's why there's some overlap in the conversations.
Okay, that sounds good. And
But yeah, ours is pretty broad because quality of life covers a lot of what the city does. Even if it's a street, that's a quality of life.
Yeah.
Some respects, but then we leave that to infrastructure. So.
If I may ask, Madam Chair, so I think you're right. In terms of vetting some of the ordinances, resolutions, or plans before they make it to City Council within the Quality of Life Department. I know that often, we sometimes have found ourselves on the council saying, well, was this vetted by a PRC or did this go to a PRC? And I think select items have gone to the PRCs in the past and some haven't. I don't know if that's depending on the chairmanship and like what they decide to put on the agenda, or if there's a better way to make sure that important policy that goes to the council that could benefit from the recommendation of a PRC kind of makes it by default on some of our agendas here, and how to best determine that process. For like the public art plan, for example, I'm sure that would have been kind of an important issue to go before the PRC, before it went to the council. So is there a process or processes which you might suggest that you could recommend to make sure that policy from the Quality of Life Department or that impacts the Quality of Life Department makes it to the PRC before it goes to the City Council? How can we best do that?
I think that's part of the idea of having me be the liaison for the PRC. And I also think that's the idea behind the new structure of why we pulled back the way the PRCs were run initially and then restructured how we're moving forward, was to be able to see if we couldn't bridge that gap and make sure that people and policies were really getting to the PRCs in a much more consistent manner. I know this morning before we met, I double checked with Assistant City Manager David Dallahan to see 3 ideas. I was like, does this go to a PRC? Does this, just to make sure that I am gaining always a better understanding of what, as we move forward, what would go and what wouldn't. So I'm always double checking those things. And I think my relationship with the chair will also will help grow that sort of understanding. And as you hear things from the public and other things, you can also bring that to me and say, hey, are we going to talk about these things especially when we get to that item on the agenda every month and say, these are items, future discussions. I want to see what that's looking like. Lisa LaRock in who is also a liaison for the PRC for sustainability, has come up with an outside consultant, a format for the liaisons to work with the chairs to come up with a lot more structure in how we present, or anybody who's presenting to a PRC is consistent in how that information is given to you as counselors, so that you're not receiving information in sort of a scattered, unstructured way. And we're hoping that that also helps you, so that if you have a consistent outline of information, or at least you know consistently what information we've prepared to give you, whether it's the background information that maybe you never even ask about, but it's available if someone from the public says, hey, do you remember how this policy affects this topic that we're talking about way over here? So it's to help us really, and the chair really think through the whole process before we get to a PRC. So we're hoping that, as you know, some of those PRC meetings got really long and convoluted. So we're hoping to make sure the conversations are focused and not wasting time, but are really diving deep into the topic, so that we are getting through the topics quickly, but thoroughly, and making sure that those topics get to you as they should. So we're really trying to that's what the idea behind reworking the PRCs really was, is to make sure you get more items that are appropriate and more thorough items.
Great. So just to run that back, you'll work directly with Chair Abate Stuvie then to get those items on the agenda that need to be on the agenda from your expertise working in the department and knowing what's coming to council, basically. Okay.
Yes. And if you hear of something that you think, we can have that discussion as well, because you can put it on the discussion list, and we can have that discussion of, does this need to be in our PRC, or does it need to be on a different PRC? And then I can talk to their liaison if it's a topic that needs to be in a different one. So, yes.
Okay.
So are there any topics that you think might need to be in the future? We can, and add, anytime you have a topic that you think of, you can always send it to the chair, and she can add it to that list.
Well, I do have one, and I don't know if it needs to be in the next meeting or not, or if it's pertinent. But we've been talking for a while about having an inventory of city property or infrastructure that would be essentially eligible for some type of public art projects. You know, we've talked about utility boxes. We've talked about even like, for example, like utility wells. You know, we have them all over. They're surrounded by chain link fence. They're not the prettiest
things ever. Yeah.
I've always loved the idea of having like an individual mural on every sprinkler box at like the Hadley softball or the Hadley sports complex. But I know some of that is incorporated in the public art plan, but I would just love to follow up on seeing if we have like an inventory of like places where we have public art begin, like we did with downtown, you know, with those little overlays on some of the utility boxes.
Okay, so like what we have and what we could do.
Yeah, just to see the world of possibilities, because I've never really been given like an option of like, okay, here's some of the things we can paint on. Here's the ones we can't because of whatever limitations, heat or surface or something like that. But yeah, I'd love to expand. I know the Arts and Cultural District downtown has embedded within it desire to beautify an art, but like I want to make sure that we're hitting all the other districts if we can. Because I would give out of my discretionary council budget, I would love to support projects like that in my district by paying for supplies and everything. I just need to know where like the city properties are where we could commission these. You know?
Okay, yeah, I can put that on a future topic, definitely.
Okay.
We don't really have any discussion items outside of what we have talked. So we talked about we were going to meet monthly. Do we have discussions of when we want to meet? What's a good time for you guys? Get to choose because you're here.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm going to pull up my calendar real fast.
And I will,
Counselor Vasquez, do you have any days that are better than others? Because I know you have work schedules as well. So what
Yeah.
days?
If you just allow me to look at my calendar here real quick. So actually at 4 p.m. on Thursdays works well. I do have a meeting every other week at 3. So 4 p.m. on Thursdays would be great. Wednesdays at 3 p.m. also would work.
Rebecca, how does the Wednesdays at 3 look like for you and your staff?
I will adjust to whatever you need, so that's fine.
Okay.
Trevor, can I, which Wednesday of the month? Because I just want to make sure for you guys that there's no other reoccurring. Because the one issue we have is we can only do one meeting at a time on YouTube. Which Wednesday was it? Was it a specific Wednesday?
It wasn't yet.
Okay.
Certain days that are booked on yours.
Let me see real quick. What was the time you're looking at?
3.
3? Let me double check. So the second Wednesdays don't look good just because there's an MPO meetings, but the rest seem to be fine.
How about the third week?
Yeah, third Wednesday of every month looks fine right now.
Does that work for you, Counselor Vasquez?
It does.
So the next one would be August 19th.
Yes.
Just to interject, Rebecca, this is Jill Aguirre. I'm the recording secretary for the committee counselors, so you guys are aware. The mayor's not available on the 19th. I can tell you that right now. So ahead of time.
Okay.
How about the 4th then? The 4th week?
The 4th week, both the Wednesday and Thursday are good for the mayor.
Okay, let's do it the 4th week then.
That's fine. Because she can see the calendar that I cannot.
And so that would be then August 26th.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that gives everybody enough time to do their recruitment.
Okay, so August 26th at 3 p.m. Yes, Jill is the person who helps us get the agenda out and make sure our bits are all done and keeps us on track.
Thank you, Jill. I'm sure I'll be working a lot with you then.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
So does anybody else have anything else to add at this time? If not, we can adjourn if everyone so desires.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to serve on this board, and I really look forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.